Hello there. Today we are going to set up a mini cart for your products, a vital part of your customers' experience as they browse your store. A mini cart is a reduced form of your WordPress cart page. It allows your customers to move to the checkout page directly from any part of your website and also to keep track and manage cart items. As well as showing details of your products, it can also include other things such as subtotal, product thumbnails, product quantity, or shipping costs. Quickly lets you design a unique mini cart that perfectly fits your website aesthetic, is fully customizable, and can be placed in the ideal part of your page. This helps client interest convert into a sale. So let's build together a mini cart for an organic produce shop. We have already set up our products in the Products tab of the dashboard. We have set up a global header template part for our mini cart. As you can see, WooCommerce has a default mini cart that we won't be using. Let's click to open in the editor. We have set up a header with a cart icon. Let's add a modal block using the quick inserter. Name it Mini Cart Modal. If you want to visualize the mini cart on the front end as we make it, in the Trigger tab, set Appear to On Load. With the mini cart modal selected, open the Design tab and add a minimum width of 500 pixels so that our elements are never squeezed. We don't need to set a height, as the items we add will do this for us. Let's add a white background. Now you can see the modal. Open the Margin and Padding tab and the Spacing tab and add an equal 20 pixel padding to separate our elements from the border. We want a softer look for our modal, so open the Borders tab and the Radius and Width tab and add an equal 10 pixel radius. To center the modal, open the Primary tab and the Modal Style tab. Set Align and Justify Center. We want the background around the mini cart to appear slightly darker so that the mini cart is easier for the customer to see. So let's set a light grey overlay. Let's add a paragraph and name it Mini Cart Title. Input the title, Items in Cart. Let's style it by opening the Typography tab and setting a font size of 1.1 EM and a font weight of 600 to make it stand out. To distance our title, in the Margin and Padding tab, let's add a 20 pixel bottom margin. Now, selecting the mini cart modal, let's add a div to contain our dynamic elements. Let's name it Context Div. We need to set up our cart context so that our mini cart modal can retrieve the required WooCommerce cart data. To do this, with the context div selected, open the Context tab and select Cart as context type. Set Show Hide to Show so that whenever a customer adds an item to the cart, the mini cart will open automatically. In this case, the customer will close the mini cart manually by clicking a Close icon. Alternatively, you could set it to Show, then Hide with a set duration, in which case the modal will close automatically after a given period of time. Let's add a columns block and choose a 2-column variation, as we want to separate the items in the cart from other data relating to them, such as shipping costs or total price. For greater clarity and a nicer layout, let's add a line separation. Select the first column and rename it Cart Items Column. Open the Design tab, the Borders tab and the Radius and Width tab. Select Solid Style and a 0 pixel top, bottom and left width and a 1 pixel right width. To separate our elements from the border, in the Margin and Padding tab, set a 20 pixel right padding. With the Cart Items column selected, add a repeater block to allow you to have the same layout designed for every item you add to the cart, using dynamic data retrieved from WooCommerce. Let's name it Cart Items Repeater. In the Primary tab, open the Source tab and set Source to Cart Items in the drop-down to let the repeater know where to retrieve the required dynamic data, in this case, cart items. In the Layout tab, set a flex display and a column direction and a 20 pixel row gap as we want our items to be stacked one above the other and spaced. To avoid overflow issues, in the Design tab, open the Visual tab and set Overflow to Auto. And then in the Sizing tab, set a maximum height of 300 pixels. Let's add a div to contain our repeater elements. Let's name it Image and Info div. With the Image and Info div selected, let's add two divs, one for the image and remove item icon, and the other for the information about the item. Let's name the first one Image div and the second Info div. We want our two divs to be next to each other, so with the Image and Info div selected, open the Layout tab and the Display tab and set Flex Display and Row Direction. Let's add a 20-pixel column gap to separate our two divs. To avoid the scroll bar hiding important information on the front end, we need to add some padding. So, in the Margin and Padding tab, open the Spacing tab and add a 20-pixel right padding. With the Image div selected, open the Sizing tab and set a height of 150 pixels and a width of 115 pixels so that all the images will have the same size. Let's add an image block. In the Primary tab, open the Source tab and set Source to Dynamic, as our image data is dynamic. Set Data to WooCommerce, as this is where we want to retrieve our data. Set WordPress to Cart Thumbnail. In the Size tab, set a height and width of 100% and Object Fit to Cover, as we want the image to adjust to the div size. For a smoother look, let's round the corners. In the Design tab, open the Borders tab and the Radius and Width tab and set an equal 5-pixel radius. To avoid overflow issues, in the Layout tab, open the Visual tab and set Overflow to Hidden. With the Image div selected, open the Layout tab and the Position tab and set Position to Relative. This is because we want to be able to remove items from the cart by clicking an absolutely placed remove icon, which we'll be adding shortly. So we need the div to be set to Relative. Now, let's add an icon to allow our customers to remove an item from the cart. In the Primary tab, in the Icon tab, add a suitable icon, in our example, a cross icon. Add a size of 10 pixels so you can visualize the icon. Make sure that Active is toggled on. You will notice it is at the bottom left where it is hardly visible, so let's change its position. In the Design tab, open the Layout tab and the Position tab and set Position to Absolute and 5 pixels from the top and right. That looks better, but we can add some styling to improve visibility. In the Background tab and Colors tab, let's add a white background color and some padding. In the Margin and Padding tab, open the Spacing tab and add a 5-pixel equal padding. In the Borders tab and the Radius and Width tab, add an equal 100-pixel radius for a round look. Let's add a solid style. Light grey border with a 1-pixel equal width, so that the customer knows when they are hovering over the remove icon. In the Background tab and the Colors tab, switch to hover mode and add a black background, and in the Typography tab, add a white text color. Return to normal mode. The transition is a little harsh, so in the Effects tab, open the Transitions tab and click the plus icon to add a transition. Set a duration of 0.4 seconds. That looks better. We need to set up the action for the remove icon so that an item is removed from the cart when the customer clicks the remove icon. To do this, in the Primary tab, open the Link modal and toggle to activate. Set Type to Action. Set Action to Cart Remove Item. Now, let's move on to setting up the Info div. We want our elements to be one on top of the other, so selecting the Info div, in the Layout tab, set Flex Display and Column Direction and a 2-pixel row gap. Let's add a paragraph for our item name. Name it Item Name. We need to attach it dynamically, so open the dynamic values and set source to WordPress. Set WordPress to Post Title. The item name is now visible. Let's add some style, so in the Typography tab, add a font size of 1 EM and a 1-pixel spacing. With the Info div selected, let's add a div to contain the pricing details. Let's name it Pricing div, and add a paragraph to show the regular price of the item and name it Regular Price. We need to attach it to the dynamic data, so open Dynamic Values, select WooCommerce as source, cart item regular price as WooCommerce, and formatted tax currency as type. Let's style the paragraph. So in the Typography tab, set a font size of 0.9 em and a font weight of 600. We need to set up the conditions under which the regular price won't show if the item is on sale. So open the Conditions tab and click the plus icon. Set conditions to On Sale. Set operator to False. Now, with the pricing div selected, add a div to contain our sale price. Rename it On Sale Div. Let's set up the layout, as we will be adding 2 paragraphs. In the Layout tab, set Flex Display, row direction and a 5-pixel column gap. Let's add our 2 paragraphs and name them Barred Regular Price and On Sale Price. We need to link them dynamically to retrieve the required data. With the Barred Regular Price paragraph selected, open Dynamic Values and set source to WooCommerce. Set WooCommerce to cart item regular price and type to formatted tax currency. Now let's style it. In the Typography tab, set a font size of 0.9 em and a font weight of 400 and select Line Through to give the barred style. With the On Sale Price paragraph selected, open the Dynamic Values and set source to WooCommerce. Set WooCommerce to cart item sale price and type to formatted tax currency. Set a font size of 0.9 em and a 600 font weight. And in the Colors tab, add a red text color to make the on sale price stand out. We need to set the conditions for the on sale price to appear, so with the on sale div selected, open Conditions and click the plus icon. Set conditions to on sale. Set operator to true. Let's save and see how the mini cart is progressing on the front end. Let's set up the div that will allow the customer to add or remove an additional item. Select the Info div and add a div. Name it Quantity div. We want to have a minus icon, the item quantity, and then a plus icon, so that the customer can either add an extra item one at a time or remove one at a time in the same way. So, in the Layout tab, set a Flex Display, row direction, and align center, and a 5-pixel column gap, since we want our elements to be in a row and centered. For the customer to be able to add or remove items, we need to add a minus and a plus icon. Let's add an icon and name it Remove Icon. Open the Icon tab and select a minus icon. Make sure that Active is toggled on. Set a size of 15 pixels. We need to link the Remove icon dynamically in order to retrieve the WooCommerce data. Open the link modal and activate it. Set Type to Action. Set Action to Quantity Step Down. Now, selecting the Quantity div, let's add a paragraph for our item quantity. Name it Item Quantity. Let's link it dynamically by opening Dynamic Values. Set source to WooCommerce. Set WooCommerce to cart item quantity. Let's style our paragraph. Open the Typography tab and set a font size of 0.8 em and a font weight of 300. Let's set up our Add icon. To save time and have the same styles, let's link it to our Remove icon. Selecting the Remove icon, toggle on Link Copied Block and copy using keyboard shortcuts. Select the Quantity div and paste using keyboard shortcuts. Select a plus icon. As you will see, the styles have been automatically applied. Name it Add icon. Since we want our customer to be able to add an item, we need to link it, so open the link modal and activate it. Set Type to Action. Set Action to Quantity Step Up. We want to add a variation value to our cart, so that if the product has variations, such as size, color, or material, the customer's choices will be visible in the cart. With the Info div selected, add a repeater. Let's name it Variation Repeater. In the Source tab, set source to cart item variation. Let's add a paragraph and name it Variation. In Dynamic Values, set source to cart variation. Set format to value. And in the Typography tab, let's set a 0.8 EM font size and font weight of 300. Save and check it out on the front end. Let's turn our attention to the column that will contain the cart total. Let's rename it Cart Total Column. We want our elements to be one on top of the other and spaced. So in the Layout tab, set Flex Display, Column Direction, and Justify Space Between. To separate our elements from the border, in the Margin and Padding tab, set a 20 pixel left padding. Let's add a div to contain the cart total data. Let's rename it Total Div, as the div contains pricing and quantity information about the customer's cart items. As we want our elements to be one on top of the other, in the Layout tab, let's set a Flex Display, Column Direction, and 5 pixel row gap. In the Margin and Padding tab, let's also add a 20 pixel bottom margin, as we want our div to be spaced from the lower elements. With the total div selected, add a paragraph. Rename it Cart Title. Input the title, Your Cart. We want the title to stand out, so in the Typography tab, add a font weight of 500. Let's add a paragraph to contain the number of items in the cart. So, selecting the total div, add a paragraph. Let's name it Cart Items Count. Open Dynamic Values and set source to WooCommerce. Set WooCommerce to Cart Items Count. Since we want to put articles after the dynamic count, we need to add articles as static text, which means does not change, in the after field. Remember to add a space before articles so that the article number isn't squeezed. We want this to be more discreet, so in the Typography tab, add a font size of 0.9 EM and a weight of 300. Save and check it out on the front end. Our next paragraphs will have the same styles, so make sure that Link Copied block is active. With the Cart Items Count paragraph selected, copy it using keyboard shortcuts. Now, with the total div selected, let's add a div that will contain the cart subtotal information. Name the div Cart Subtotal Div. As we want our elements to be centered and spaced out on the row, in the Layout tab, set Flex Display, Row Direction, Align Center, and Justify Space Between. Selecting the Cart Subtotal div, paste in the copied paragraph styles twice to give you 2 styled paragraphs. Select the first paragraph and rename it Subtotal Title. Input Cart Subtotal. Rename the second paragraph Subtotal. Open Dynamic Values and set source to WooCommerce. Set WooCommerce to Cart Subtotal and type to formatted tax currency. We want the next div to have the same styles as a Cart Subtotal div, so copy the Cart Subtotal div using keyboard shortcuts and making sure Link Copied block is active. Select the total div and paste in the copied div. Let's rename it Shipping Cost div, as it will contain information about shipping cost. Rename the first paragraph Shipping Title and input Shipping Cost. Rename the second paragraph Shipping Cost. Open Dynamic Values and set source to WooCommerce. Set WooCommerce to Cart Shipping Total. Set type to formatted tax currency. Now, let's add a separator to separate the subtotal and shipping costs from the cart total. So, with the total div selected, add a div and name it Separator div. In the Sizing tab, set a 1 pixel height and 100% width so that the separator occupies the entire width. Let's give it a black background color. For our total, let's select the Cart Shipping Cost div as we want the layout to be the same. As we don't want the styles to be linked, deactivate Link Copied block and copy using keyboard shortcuts. Now select Total div and paste in the copied div. Rename it Total Cost div. Rename the first paragraph Total Title, Input Total. We want it to stand out more, so increase the font weight to 600. Rename the second paragraph Total Cost. Open the dynamic values and in the WooCommerce field select Cart Total. Set type to formatted tax currency. Increase the font weight to 600. Save and check it out on the front end. At the bottom of the Cart Total column, we have added a Checkout button, which will link to your checkout page, and a See Cart button that will link to your cart page at the bottom of the Cart Total column. Finally, we need to add a message that will appear if the cart is empty. So, with the context div selected, add a paragraph. Rename it Empty Cart Message and input your message. Let's set up the conditions for when it will appear. So, open the Conditions modal and click the plus icon to add a condition. Set condition to Cart is empty. Set operator to True. As we only want the message to appear if the cart is empty, selecting the Columns block, open the Conditions modal. Click on the plus icon. Set condition to Cart is empty. Set operator to False. Save and check it out on the front end. In order for the customer to be able to close the mini-cart, let's add a closing icon. So, with the mini-cart modal selected, add an icon. Rename it Close Mini-Cart Icon. In the Icon tab, select a suitable icon, in this case a cross icon. Make sure Active is toggled on and give it a size of 18 pixels. The icon needs to be more visible, so let's move it up to the upper right corner. To do this, open the Design tab, the Layout tab, the Position tab, and set Position to Absolute, and a -10 pixels from the top and -10 pixels from the right. In the Background tab, let's give it a white background. And in the Margin and Padding tab, add an equal 5-pixel padding. In the Borders tab, open the Radius and Width tab and set an equal 100-pixel radius, solid style, a 1-pixel width, and a dark grey border. We need to link the modal in order to be able to close it, so in the Primary tab, open the Link modal and activate it. Set Type to Action, set Action to Modal, set Type to Close. For the modal block ID, in the navigator, search for the mini-cart modal. Right-click and copy the block ID. Paste it into the block ID field using keyboard shortcuts. Save and check it out on the front end. Now, the client can click the cross icon to close the mini-cart. As we did for the mini-cart modal, we need to set up a cart context for the div that contains the cart icon in order to retrieve the required WooCommerce cart data. To do this, with the div selected, in the Primary tab, open the Context tab and select Cart as context type. Finally, we need to add a number count to the header cart icon, so that the customer knows how many items are in the cart. Add a paragraph and name it Cart Count Icon. Open Dynamic Values and set source to WooCommerce. Set WooCommerce to Cart Items Count. Let's style it. So in the Colors tab, set a red background and a white text color. In the Typography tab, set a size of 0.7 em. Let's add some padding. So in the Margin and Padding tab, add a 3-pixel top and bottom padding and an 8-pixel left and right padding. In the Design tab, open the Borders tab and the Radius and Width tab and set an equal 50-pixel radius for a round look. We want the item count to appear on the top right of the cart icon. So in the Layout tab and the Position tab, set Position to Absolute and 13 pixels from the bottom and left. we need to give the cart div a relative position. So, with the cart div selected, in the Layout tab and Position tab, set position to relative. Let's link the cart to the modal. So with the cart div selected, in the Primary tab, open the link modal and activate it. Set type to action, set action to modal, set type to open. And for the block ID, in the navigator, right-click on the minicart modal and copy the ID. Paste into the block ID field using keyboard shortcuts. Save and check it out on the front end. And that is how you set up a minicart for WooCommerce in Quickly.